Hey everybody, it's Bram Duffee, back with speech class today, talking about the informative speech. You know, where we are in class right now has us working on the informative speech. This week, you'll be doing the outline, and then next week is spring break, and the week when we come back, you'll be set up to perform the demonstration speech. So that's kind of the timeline that we're on, and I'm excited for your break week, but getting into this week, what we're doing is building on these assignments to develop your skills. So first, we started with you talking about yourself and things that you're comfortable with, and then we went into a demonstration speech so that you could practice some of these things in a way so that you're performing and focusing on an item instead of yourself. And now we're going to focus instead of yourself and instead of an object, we're going to focus on information. So the informative speech is work in progress, and it's difficult sometimes to pull off because you want to be interesting. You don't want to bore your audience. So that is why audience analysis takes a part of this. And I want everyone to really focus on your topic and make that the main focus for you starting this assignment, because whatever topic that you start with, you're hopefully going to dedicate your time in a way to perfect that. So if you want to shoot me an email and say, hey, what do you think about this topic or that topic, I encourage you to do that, because we're going to want to limit the topic to something that you can do within a speech. So your assignment for week 9 is to create a full sentence outline for the introduction and the conclusion for the speech. You do not have to do the full sentence outline for the body of the speech, but this is setting you up to have the prep time to fill that in. And so filling that in is a part of what we're going to talk about today with the informative speech, looking at chapters 8, 9, and 10. So when you're putting together a really good speech, adding in extra bits of information isn't just nice to have, it's super important. And this extra information does more than just make your speech look good. It helps clear things up, it adds more details, and it proves that what you're saying is true. And if you're trying to convince someone of something, the evidence you bring is like the strong base that holds up the whole argument. You can use different kinds of things to support your speech, like stories, and examples, or facts, and even numbers or statistics. And these are the tools that you have to not only keep your audience hooked, but to show them why your ideas make sense, giving them real solid proof for what you're talking about. To really hit home with your speech, it's key to use a bunch of different supporting materials. And people are more likely to be convinced and stay interested if you give them evidence from all sorts of places that back up each main point that you're making. And so by mixing up the types of support that you use, your speech gets more exciting and believable, and also connects with different ways people like to learn. But it's important to pick the kind of support for your audience that matches up, because even if a source is totally trustworthy, it needs to fit what your audience cares about and what they understand. So in that way, your speech can make an impact to that person. Offering examples is a straightforward way to bring home those points. And whether it's a brief example that illustrates a single point, or maybe an extended example that offers a detailed picture of that concept, it's just that examples serve as relatable illustrations of whatever you're saying. And so hypothetical examples can also be really powerful, especially in persuasive speeches. But it's because it's all about illustrating the potential future scenario that could arise if something happens. So probably one of the ways that I like to try to connect with my audience is through stories or narratives, because it's just another path to connect with your audience on an emotional level. And a successful story is not just going to entertain, it's also going to create a bond between the speaker and the audience, and it makes your message more believable and memorable. So whether it's like an antidote or an extended narrative, the inclusion of challenges and lively things that happen that you can bring to light matter. So these are the kinds of things that can make a difference. Also, when you have direct hand testimony where you can draw on an expert or you can refer to direct conversation, these things can be really invaluable because they serve as a strong factoid that gets put out there to help your case of discussion and enlightenment. So when it comes to things like numbers or the facts in general, the precision is really key because the way it's presented could add a layer of authority to your speech by maybe summarizing or comparing. But if you use statistics in a way so that you are talking over someone's head, then even misusing the statistic or using the statistic in the right way, all of these things can create distrust in the audience. So you want to make sure that they understand what the statistic is that you're talking about and its relevance, and all of it laid out in a simple way so that you're not going over their head, but at the same time you are striving to present your supporting material in an ethical, engaging way. So the way we go about this is to start out with your purpose statement and your thesis statement. And I know it seems wild sometimes to focus on that, but the reason I do is because what I know is that you can end up in a tangent, and especially when we're doing an informational type speech, you can dig so far into the topic that you waste time and don't have impact on what it can do for your speech. And so if you have at the top of your paper the main goal, then it can continue to help you focus as you do your searches. But I like to start out my understanding of a topic by going to regular internet sources that are easy, like Google and Wikipedia, and I just use that for brainstorming of ideas and thoughts. And then after that, go into being able to dig in some of the detail. And so it's some of that process that we're going to go into together. So by reviewing this, the thesis statement and the purpose statement that you set out for the speech to begin with, it's going to help you put together and support your goal in a way so that you're not wasting time. And so the first thing you do is think about the main point and what you want to achieve in your speech. And it's important because it lets you think about what kind of information or examples that you need to support your idea. So it's kind of like choosing the right tools for a job. You also need to think about who's going to be listening to your speech and why you're giving it and what's happening. And these kinds of details will help you pick the best information and be relevant to the audience that is there to see you. Finding good information to use is a big deal, and it's one of the best ways to start this out is by digging through library website, because if you go to the library website, it's like a secret door that can lead you to tons of reliable stuff like articles, books, and more. And you don't just find all that by searching the internet, right? When you search the internet, you end up with, well, a bunch of, I guess I would like to think of it as confetti thrown in the air, right? So you just kind of get what you get, but you can't rely on each one of those things until you dig into them. If you start out with if you go to some place that you know most of your sources are reliable, it can lessen your time on that. So that's why I say start with the unreliable and then move towards reliable pretty quickly, because in today's world, it's really important to know the difference between true stuff and things that aren't true when you're getting ready to give a speech. And there are a few tricky things that you have to watch out for. First, there's propaganda. And this is when someone takes facts, but they present them in a way that make you feel a certain way, even though it may not be the whole truth. Then we have misinformation. This is like using the wrong information that gets spread around, and it's used to cause harm or make things confusing. And also there's disinformation, which is where we take false information and spread that on purpose to trick people. So the goal is not to do any of these things. It's to simply inform. So for your speech to really hit home, you need to base it on a solid, believable bit of information. And so this means using, at least two kinds of sources, categories of sources, like primary and secondary sources. And so the primary sources are the things that come from your own experiences, like official documents or data that you've collected yourself. And secondary sources would be stuff that other people collected, like articles or books, sources that explain. But all of this can provide extra insight. And getting good at finding information is really important, because using the right keywords and doing your searches in a curtailed way can help you set things up to be interesting and educational for your audience. And you'll teach your audience something cool and new, hopefully. And so the way that all of this comes together is we bulk the speech, not with just stuff that's filler. We put things in the body that make sense. And I want to remind you that, like in a lot of formal outlining, just because we have 3 points doesn't mean, we don't necessarily have to have evenly weighted points, right? So if we have an outline that we're putting together, just because the main section has points A, B, and C doesn't mean that the next section has to have also 3 points. So the way that we balance these things is usually about the amount of time that we're going to spend on each area. So as you're developing your speech, I also have to mention citing sources, because you know that citing sources is just a fancy way of giving credit to the information that you have out there. And it shows that you've done your homework and found reliable stuff to say that backs up what you're going for here. And it's not like you're just being nice. It also makes people see you and as being trustworthy. So you don't have to list every single detail written, but you do mention where you got your major points from. So you might say, according to a study by Francis in the Journal of Atoms, those kinds of things would be helpful. You might say, in a book I read by, and then you mention the name of the author, or in a book I read called, and mention the title. So it's not like you are going to stand up in front of the audience and read the whole bibliography information. You mention the things that are important and notable, right? So I wouldn't normally say a study and then say the year and say the title. I might just pick one of those things. I might just say, in a 1963 study that you'll see reference at the end, it was found that blah, 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 blah. Or you might say, in the Journal of Social Science, they were able to discover that, and then you move on. Or you might be able to say something like, the scholar, Dr. Adam Jacobson, was able to see in a recent article about, and then go on with the topic. So you see what I'm saying? You're giving a flavor of this. And so at the very end, you can present that on a slide with your correct reference, or you could present that in a handout, but not in a way that's going to detract from your speech. And what we're doing in this speech is we're focusing on delivering information in a way so that we can be relatable to the audience. And one of the things that we're asking for is that you signal the structure of your speech. So that's like saying, now that we've talked about this element, next we'll talk about this. And so you're always hand-holding the speech through that, the listener through that as part of your speech. And so when you talk about your sources, it's very similar, because one of the things that I will be listening for is that structure that goes into that. So when I'm grading your speech and I am looking to see what reference you put in the speech, or what information you've pulled this from, I should hear it as we go through. And like I said, it's not a matter of putting your speech out there with references like a robot. It's referring to that, and then I should be able to find that on at the end of your speech outline, right? At the very least, or on a slide. So part of citing sources, like I said, is about ethics. Part of it is about being believable, and then there is a right way to do it. And when we look at all of this as an assignment that we're working on, is an informative speech goal. We're starting with the outline this week, and then we skip for spring break, right? And then when we come back, you'll be doing the full speech in week 10 and week 11. So this is something we focus on for about 3 weeks, is this informative speech. So use this time to deliver, to make sure that you are picking a good speech topic, and reach out to me if you have questions or want to run those things by me, because the common thing I find is that students pick too broad of a topic, and too broad of a topic means that you end up having parts of the topic that get breezed over, or things that you end up getting obviously missed. So we want to limit the topic to something that you can cover within the time period. And then the focus again is about the structure of the speech, so that you make your transitions clear and you make your references clear, so that everything is flagged for your audience, so that you would, again, do something like at the end of your speech, you would say, well, today I've talked about these 3 elements. And based on that, see, you are able to do summary work and transition work and set your audience up so that they feel like you're holding their hand, right, through the speech. And they know what part you're on, what you're talking about. And that includes your transitioning to different parts, those words, and also setting up your references so that that the audience knows it's coming. I look forward to seeing your stuff, and after that spring break. So no matter, I'll be available if you want to hit me up by email. Take care.